I want to share an incident that happened during my shift at the hotel yesterday, which left me both frustrated and baffled. Not even an hour into my shift, a man approached the front desk. I greeted him and asked if he was checking in. He replied that he was not checking in but needed a new key for his room. I did not recognize him as a guest, so I asked for his name to look up his reservation. However, his name did not match any of the reservations in our system. I informed him politely that I could not provide a new key since his name was not on the reservation. Hotel policy requires us to verify the identity of guests before issuing room keys for security reasons. This news did not sit well with him. He became visibly agitated and began raising his voice, insisting that he was indeed staying in the room and that surveillance cameras could prove it. He demanded that I call my manager immediately because he had things to do. Sensing the situation escalating, I began dialing my manager's number. As soon as I started, he quickly changed his tone. "Actually, do not bother," he said hastily. "I was going to check out early today anyway, so there is no need. I will just come back tomorrow for my refund." I continued dialing, unconvinced by his sudden change of heart. "Did you not hear what I said?" he snapped. "Why are you calling your manager?" "Because I can," I replied calmly. When my manager answered the call, the man started yelling over me, demanding to speak with her. I handed over the phone, and he began ranting about how ridiculous the situation was and demanded a refund. My manager tried to explain that for safety reasons, we could not issue a key since he was not listed on the reservation. She assured him that once we investigated the matter, we would reach out to him regarding any reimbursement. However, he kept interrupting her, fixated on getting a refund. Frustrated, he thrust the phone back into my hand and stormed out of the lobby. After he left, my manager instructed me to cancel the reservation and check the room's condition. While I went to inspect the room, she contacted the previous front desk agent to gather more information about this guest. As it turns out, this man is a regular visitor who uses our hotel to conduct extramarital affairs. He goes to great lengths to avoid being seen, even requesting to be let in through the back door with his mistress, to bypass the lobby entirely. He always pays in cash, and on this particular occasion, he had asked my coworker to change the name on his reservation. For reasons unknown to me, my coworker complied with his request. When I entered the room to assess its condition, it was evident that it had been used extensively. There was trash scattered on the desks. The bed was unmade and disheveled. Towels and toiletries had been used, and the room had an unpleasant odor, since housekeeping had already left for the day. The room could not be cleaned and prepared for new guests. I informed my manager that the guest should be charged the full price for the room, just as any other guest would be. I reviewed his previous reservations and noticed a pattern. He only stayed for a few hours each time, likely for his clandestine meetings. My manager agreed with me. However, the following day, I discovered that they had left $30, approximately 35% of the room's total cost, attached to a note with the guest's name on it in the office. This was meant to be a partial refund due to the inconvenience he experienced. I was baffled. What inconvenience? If he had been honest and not deceptive, I could have resolved the situation more smoothly. What truly infuriated me was that this was not the first time I had encountered guests behaving irrationally and disrespectfully for no valid reason. This was the third or fourth instance where a guest acted out while management was on the phone and could hear everything, yet they still chose to side with the guest. It made me question whether my efforts to uphold the hotel's policies and ensure safety were valued at all. Later that day, one of the housekeepers called me to share some unsettling gossip about the incident. Apparently, the guest had called before I arrived for my shift and made derogatory and racist comments about me, expressing hatred and using offensive language. Despite this, management still decided to give him a refund. I felt disheartened and unappreciated. It was difficult to comprehend why a guest who was openly disrespectful and violating hotel policies was being accommodated, while I, trying to do my job correctly, was disregarded. It made me question the priorities of the management and whether they truly supported their staff.
I never thought I would find myself in this situation, but here I am, questioning the very foundation of a friendship that has lasted since middle school. My soon-to-be ex-best friend, whom I will call Alyssa, and I have been inseparable for as long as I can remember. We know everything about each other, and our families are so intertwined that they might as well be one big family. We have shared our deepest secrets, supported each other through life's ups and downs, and I always believed that our bond was unbreakable. That illusion shattered recently when Alyssa came to me with a confession that left me both shocked and disgusted. She revealed that she has been having an affair for about 4 months with her superior at her new job, which she started about a year ago. What disturbed me the most was not just the affair itself, but the way she presented it, not out of guilt or seeking advice, but to brag about the dream vacation she is planning with her affair partner, disguised as a work trip. She even asked me to cover for her if her husband, Noah, asks if we have been in contact, because she plans to go completely off the grid during that week so he would have no way of finding out. To provide some context, both Alyssa and I have known Noah since high school. They are high school sweethearts and have been together for almost 15 years. Noah is one of the most honest, hardworking, and genuine people I know. He trusts Alyssa implicitly, taking everything she says at face value, including her excuses about working late and these so-called business trips. It breaks my heart to think of how deeply she is betraying someone who loves her so unconditionally. I was appalled by Alyssa's request. I told her in no uncertain terms that I would not cover for her and that she needed to leave my house immediately because I could not even look at her. She seemed taken aback by my reaction but left without much of a fight. Later that evening, I told my husband everything that had happened. He was just as shocked and disgusted as I was. Over the years, Noah has become one of his best friends, so he felt a strong sense of loyalty toward him as well. My husband pointed out something I had not even considered. Our home security camera had captured the entire conversation with Alyssa. We realized we had concrete proof of her admitting to the affair and asking me to be complicit in her deceit. We decided that Noah deserved to know the truth. We planned to go to his house that very night to show him the evidence. It would be up to him to decide what to do with this information, but at least he would no longer be living in ignorance. Initially, we also contemplated taking the information to Alyssa's workplace. As far as we know, fraternization of any kind is prohibited there, especially between a supervisor and a subordinate. She had even been promoted once by this same supervisor, which could be seen as favoritism or a breach of professional ethics. Our assumption was that if we reported them, both could potentially lose their jobs. Moreover, I considered sending a snippet of her confession to her family and mine. Given how intertwined our families are, it would be easy to contact the majority of her relatives. I did not want to give her a chance to twist the narrative or spin this situation against me or her husband. Some might think these actions are harsh, but I wholeheartedly disagree. Alyssa's betrayal goes beyond infidelity. She involved me in her deceit and expected me to betray someone I deeply respect and care about. That was a line I could not allow her to cross. After reflecting and considering advice from others, I decided to take a step back. Many people pointed out that going nuclear could have unintended consequences, especially for Noah. If he decided to stay with her, publicizing the affair could ruin his life even further. Additionally, causing Alyssa to lose her job might negatively impact any future divorce proceedings, particularly in terms of financial settlements. I chose to leave the decision up to Noah. We still planned to tell him the truth, but I decided against taking further action. For now, I resolved that if Alyssa tried to blame us or spread lies, I would reconsider and potentially take more drastic measures. Before confronting Noah, I decided to reach out to Alyssa one last time. I recorded the conversation for my own protection and informed her of this. She remained disturbingly nonchalant throughout our talk. I expressed my concern, telling her that this behavior was extremely out of character for her. She confessed that she felt weak and unbalanced in her marriage to Noah. For context, Noah attended trade school and now earns a substantial income, while Alyssa, up until her recent promotion, was making slightly above minimum wage. She had been reading forums that criticized traditional values, and some individuals had attacked her for making less than her husband, planting seeds of insecurity. Alyssa noticed that her supervisor was flirting with her, and her new online friends encouraged her to run with it and use him to advance her career. She did just that but admitted that she had become emotionally attached to him as well. She told me she does not regret the affair because it helped her career and because she believes she has found love. I informed her that she had the option to tell Noah the truth herself before we did. as my husband and I planned to visit him that evening with the video evidence. She responded with a dismissive okay, and hung up. Her lack of remorse or concern left me baffled. I began to wonder if she was experiencing some sort of mental breakdown or psychosis. Alyssa has always been vehemently opposed to infidelity, often cutting people out of her life for such transgressions. For her to engage in the very behavior she once condemned was both hypocritical and alarming. That evening, my husband and I went to Noah and Alyssa's home, bringing dinner and some wine. By the time we arrived, Noah had already consumed a bottle of wine on his own. To our surprise, Alyssa had already confessed to him about the affair. He told us that her admission was extremely cold and devoid of any apology. She had sat him down and bluntly told him that she was not going on a business trip but was instead going on vacation with her boyfriend. Noah, ever the trusting and loyal husband, thought she had misspoken and meant to say husband. He became excited and asked if they were finally going to Italy, a trip they had always dreamed of. Alyssa just stared at him and repeated, "With my boyfriend." It took a few moments for the reality to sink in. Noah said he embarrassingly got on his knees and begged her to reconsider and work on their marriage. She yelled at him briefly and then became completely unresponsive. Already packed to leave, she walked out, leaving him devastated and alone. She turned off her location tracking on the family app we all shared, and we have no idea where she went. We assume she went to her affair partner's home. If she had gone to her parents' house with 2 suitcases, her mother would have contacted Noah immediately, as she considers him like a son. We sat down with Noah and informed him that we had video and audio proof of Alyssa admitting to the affair. We offered to send it to him in case he needed it for any reason. I explained that, in a moment of blind rage, I had considered exposing her actions to everyone, but after calming down, I realized that would only cause more harm, especially to him. Going nuclear would not change what had happened, and Alyssa clearly did not care about the consequences of her actions. Noah admitted that thoughts of reconciliation were still lingering in his mind, but he understood that it was unlikely. Reconciliation requires both parties to acknowledge their faults and genuinely desire to repair the relationship, and Alyssa showed no interest in doing so. We connected him with a lawyer friend who agreed to help him pro bono during the divorce proceedings. I could tell Noah was hesitant about moving forward with the divorce, but he also recognized that he could not force Alyssa to stay in a marriage she had already abandoned. As many have suggested, this is where we step back. We will continue to support Noah as friends, but ultimately, it is his decision on how to proceed. How he chooses to navigate his life and marriage is his responsibility, not ours. To address some lingering questions. What did Alyssa ever do to you that made you want to go so nuclear? Honestly, nothing specific. Over the past few years, our friendship had become one of convenience more than genuine connection. We remained friends because of our shared history, not because we were particularly close anymore. Alyssa has always had qualities I did not agree with, but that is true of most people. What truly angered me was the hypocrisy and lack of remorse. Alyssa has always been vehemently against cheating, often cutting people out of her life for it. For her to not only engage in an affair but to feel no guilt and expect me to support her deceit was infuriating and made me question whether she was experiencing a mental health crisis. Are you in love with Noah? Absolutely not. Praising someone's character and acknowledging that they are a good person does not equate to romantic feelings. My relationship with Noah has always been purely platonic. He loved Alyssa, and I was happy for them. I am happily married and have only ever seen Noah as a brother figure. Suggesting otherwise is both illogical and offensive. In the end, I am left feeling a mix of sadness, betrayal, and concern. I have lost a friend, witnessed a marriage crumble, and am left questioning how well we truly know the people we hold dear. All I can do now is be there for those who need support and hope that time will heal the wounds caused by this unfortunate situation. I feel the need to provide some context before diving into the shocking discovery that has turned my world upside down. Hello, my name is Emily, and I am 25 years old. My parents divorced when I was just 3 years old. They both felt that they no longer loved each other and decided to part ways amicably. After their separation, they each began dating other people. My mother remarried 2 years later when I was 5, and she gave birth to my half-brother, Jordan, 2 years after that. My father remarried when I was 11, but he and his new wife did not have any children. Growing up, I lived with my mother during the weekdays and spent weekends with my dad. I have always had a very good and healthy relationship with both of my parents and with Jordan. Recently, I became curious about my ancestry. The only thing I knew for certain was that my dad is Russian. I decided to take a 23andMe DNA test to learn more about my heritage. I thought it would be fun to include Jordan, who is now 18 years old, in this journey of discovery. He agreed, so we both submitted our samples to the lab. The results arrived yesterday, and what I found left me utterly stunned. According to the test, Jordan and I are full biological siblings, not half-siblings as we had always believed. At first, I thought there must be some mistake. It did not make sense because my stepfather, who was very much Italian, complete with the accent and all, could not be Jordan's biological father if our DNA shows that we are both half Eastern European, Russian, and other parts of Europe, with no trace of Italian ancestry. Jordan's ancestry is remarkably similar to mine. The only logical conclusion is that Jordan is also my dad's son, but how could that be? I have never noticed any striking resemblance between Jordan and my dad, but perhaps that is because Jordan is the spitting image of our mother. Did my mom cheat on my stepfather with my dad after claiming that they did not love each other anymore? The thought was both confusing and distressing. I did not want to jump to conclusions, so I decided that I needed to talk to my mom about this as soon as possible. I planned to ask her about it after work, hoping for some clarity. Before confronting her, I wanted to address some questions that might arise. Yes, my father is definitely my biological dad, not just because he is Russian but because we have previously taken a DNA test for another purpose, not because he doubted I was his child. He is truly the best dad ever. No, my mom did not cheat on my dad during their marriage. My stepfather is unmistakably Italian, and both Jordan and I have no Italian heritage according to our DNA results. His mother, Jordan's supposed grandmother, would come from Italy to visit us. There is no third shooter or unknown man involved. Now, on to what happened when I spoke with my mom. My mom and I have a tradition of spending an evening together for a girls' night every couple of months. I asked her if we could have one of our special nights, and she agreed. I went to her home, and we did what we usually do. We baked something delicious, enjoyed it while watching a movie of my choice, and chatted about life while wearing some quirky facial masks. The mood was light and enjoyable, so I decided it was the right time to bring up the DNA test. I said, "Hey Mom, do you know about those 23andMe tests?" She was not familiar with them, so I explained how they work and why I was interested in taking one. I told her that Jordan and I had done the test together and that the results came back with something unusual. She looked curious and asked what I meant by unusual. I told her that the test indicated that Jordan and I are fully related to each other. I laughed a little, expecting her to dismiss it as an error, but she became quiet. I asked, "It was wrong, right?" Instead of answering, she became angry and asked why I had taken the test with Jordan without consulting her first. At that moment, a realization hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt defensive and asked her if she was serious. She apologized and sat there silently for what felt like an eternity but was probably just a couple of minutes. Finally, she confessed that it was a one-time mistake. 19 years ago, when I was around 6, I was at my dad's house taking a nap. My mom came over to pick me up, but since I was sleeping, my dad told her she could either come back later or stay and pack my things before taking me home. She decided to stay, and somehow, they ended up being intimate with each other. She insisted that it only happened once and that they never repeated it after that day. She also claimed that she did not know Jordan was my dad's son until now. I was furious with both my mom and my dad. I asked her how she could have done such a thing, especially after they had decided to part ways. She kept saying it was an accident and that they never intended for it to happen. They did not seem to grasp the magnitude of the problem this could create. One of the immediate issues is that Jordan had developed a significant crush on my cousin from my dad's side, who, as it turns out, is now also his cousin. Thankfully, that crush had faded away, but I had even helped him flirt with her at one point. The thought of that makes me feel both horrified and sick to my stomach. Jordan had also spent years learning Italian so he could communicate better with his supposed grandmother, my stepfather's mother. He invested so much time and effort into embracing a heritage that, according to these results, is not even his. I feel like my entire family history has been turned upside down. I do not know how to process this information or what steps to take next. I believe I need a proper DNA test involving my dad to get definitive answers. I decided not to tell Jordan about any of this yet, as I do not want to upset him without having all the facts. I called my boss and informed them that I could not come into work the next day. I also called my dad and asked if we could meet so that both of my parents could talk and so I could convince him to provide a DNA sample for further testing. I am still in shock and disbelief. I do not know how to navigate this situation. Part of me feels betrayed, and another part just feels lost. I worry about how this will affect Jordan, my relationships with my parents, and the rest of our family. I am reaching out for advice on how to handle this complicated and emotionally charged situation. Any guidance would be greatly appreciated. I am going to share something that has left me in shock, and I really need some advice right now. I have been best friends with Nina for 12 years. We became especially close about 10 years ago when she confided in me that she was gay and struggling with depression. She comes from a conservative Christian family and was dealing with a lot of internal conflict. She was even suicidal for a while. I became her support system and cheerleader, encouraging her to get therapy. I went with her to LGBTQ support groups, and while her mental health improved, she decided to stay in the closet. Over the years, she dated a few women who were disguised as close friends and roommates. I was the only one who knew about her relationships. Like many female best friends, we spend a lot of time together and know an unhealthy amount of information about each other's private and personal lives. She has also supported me through my difficult times and is truly my sister in spirit. I have been dating my boyfriend for a bit over a year now, and things are getting serious. We are at the point of discussing future plans like moving in together and timelines for marriage. We have a good relationship overall. 2 weeks ago, on her birthday, Nina finally came out first to her family and then on Facebook to everyone. Unfortunately, a lot of her family has abandoned her over it. I invited her to spend Thanksgiving with us. I am Canadian. We had our own small dinner with just some close friends on Saturday. At dinner, Nina gave an emotional speech, thanking us for loving her as she is and then thanked me especially for saving her life and supporting her all these years. After everyone left, I noticed that my boyfriend looked irate. I asked him what was wrong, and he suddenly exploded, saying, "You knew all this time she was gay?" I thought he was upset that I never shared it with him and started explaining that it was not my secret to share. He went on to explain that he feels betrayed that I had a close friend who would be sexually interested in me. He brought up all the times I spent the night at her house, even sleeping in the same bed with her, and concluded that I have basically been cheating on him this whole time. I was baffled and became angry, probably louder than I should have been. I told him that he was being unreasonable, that she is my best friend and basically my sister, and what he was accusing me of was hurtful. I told him he needed to either apologize or leave my apartment. Well, he did leave. Later, he texted me to uninvite me to his family's dinner, which was on Monday. He said that if he was this close to a girl, I would be mad too. I think his comparison is absurd. It has been almost a week, and neither of us thinks we should apologize. I am tired of living like this. Even a breakup would be less frustrating at this point. He claims I disrespected our relationship, and I think he is way out of line. Who is wrong here? Shortly after, my father suffered an accident at work, which led to him being hospitalized. He is okay now, resting at home and has not suffered any long-term injuries. I eventually read all the comments and want to thank everyone for the love, support, and advice. To the LGBTQ folks who thanked me for keeping my friend's secret, I did what any person should do. I hope each and every one of you finds great friends and a strong support system. To those defending his reaction, I just hope no one ever trusts you with their secret. A third-party secret has nothing to do with your relationship. Do not share other people's personal information for the sake of honesty in a relationship that is not right. in response to some common questions. No, I still do not agree that my situation is the same as him having a super intimate straight female friend. I am straight. I have been close with Nina for over a decade. Not once have we had an awkward or romantic moment. The closest example would be him having a gay male friend. Also, I know I might be criticized for saying this, but male and female friendships with the same gender are different. Males and females bond differently with their own gender, not always, of course, but generally. Female best friends are closer than male best friends in terms of physical boundaries. I can understand his disappointment. I was ready to comfort and assure him that me not sharing Nina's secret was not due to a lack of trust in him, but in no way do I feel like I betrayed him or prioritized Nina over him. I always spent a healthy amount of time with him. We both agreed we wanted a little independence in our relationship. It was one of the things that made us a better couple. During my time at the hospital with my dad, my boyfriend came around once to ask about him and suggested we put our fight on pause. I agreed initially, but then a few days ago, he came around again, and we got lunch. As we were talking, he said something like, "When you are feeling better and are ready to discuss and apologize, we should talk." That just set me off, but I stayed calm and said that I apologize for yelling and nothing more. I refuse to apologize for keeping a secret, and I am expecting his apology for accusing me of cheating. Long story short, I broke up with him. He has been sending me texts ranging from wanting to stay friends to saying he never wants to see me again, to expressing mild anger, and today, asking to talk again. I am done. I do not know if this is healthy, but I am already over it. Nina is truly my sister in spirit and has been in my life for much longer. We are going to Cuba with a few other friends for winter holidays. Thanks again for your support. Maybe I will meet someone new. I know there are plenty of men out there without a skewed view on lesbians and with a better understanding of female friendship. I want to add that I love how some people are focusing on the fact that we slept in the same bed. She is my close friend with zero sexual tension. I am straight, so if he cannot trust me around someone I am not attracted to, why bother dating him? What if I ever make a male friend? Will I not be allowed to be near him? People are capable of non-sexual physical contact. If he cannot understand that, it is his issue. He insisted I betrayed him. I dumped him.
Welcome on the channel Nice Stories. Today we have intriguing story about
I am in shock and desperately need advice. My name is Michael, a 40-year-old husband and father. My wife, Emily, who is 37, and I have been married for 10 years. We recently celebrated our anniversary, and we have two wonderful children who mean the world to me. Since the beginning of this year, something has been off between us. Emily started acting strangely. She became irritable, avoided me, and our intimacy dwindled significantly. Some days she was happy and engaging. Other days, she was fully irritated. Sometimes she was a great mother to our kids, and at other times, she would express regret about having them. Recently, I had to visit a urologist for a urinary tract infection. The test suggested it might be a sexually transmitted disease. This was a huge shock, because I have never been with anyone other than my wife since we started dating. At that time, Emily was away at a so-called business seminar, which she frequently attended. Out of desperation and confusion, I decided to look through her diaries, which she has been keeping for over a decade. It was the first time I had ever breached her privacy, but I felt I had no choice. What I discovered shattered my world. She has been having multiple sexual partners for the past 2 years. In particular, there was one affair that lasted over a year, and part of her irritability seemed to stem from her lover moving on to someone else. I also discovered she has a hidden Tinder account and has been meeting with other men regularly. I was devastated beyond words. I felt lost and unsure of what to do, especially since we have two young children who depend on us. While Emily was still away, my in-laws kindly offered to look after the kids. They remained unaware of the turmoil I was experiencing. I used this time to go through her diaries thoroughly, taking pictures of their contents as evidence. Each entry felt like a stab in the back, leaving me in a state of shock and disbelief. I no longer recognized the woman I thought I knew and loved for over a decade. The revelations in the diaries were beyond anything I could have imagined. She has been involved with at least 6 different men over the past 2 years. These affairs occurred not only during her seminars, but also during short business trips. dinners, and other supposed work-related events. Meanwhile, I was at home, taking care of the kids and naively believing I was supporting her career. Some entries vividly described how exhilarating these encounters were for her, all while expressing gratitude toward me for being a devoted husband and father without a single trace of remorse. This lack of guilt and the extent of her deception made me question her emotional and mental state. As I read through the diaries, I felt an overwhelming sense of despair and even contemplated ending my life. In the end, I sought refuge with friends for a few days, as I felt I could not be alone. Otherwise, I feared I might do something irreversible. My friends were incredibly supportive during this time. They helped me get in contact with a therapist, and I began attending regular therapy sessions once a week. They also assisted me in reaching out to lawyers specializing in divorce. I started treatment for the STD as well. Returning home after picking up the kids from my in-laws was emotionally devastating. I could not bring myself to smile. At one point, while lost in dark thoughts, my daughter looked at me and saw the pain in my eyes. Without saying a word, she came over and wrapped her arms around me. In that moment, I broke down, held her tightly, and burst into tears. She is my sweet angel, and the shame of having considered leaving my children to suffer under their mother's disdain was almost too much to bear. For the first few weeks after discovering her betrayal, I could barely sleep and depended on sleeping pills just to get through the nights. My motivation was at an all-time low, affecting both my home life and my work. I forced myself to continue exercising and found that it was the only thing that made me feel better during this time. To whoever advised me not to give up on exercising, thank you, you may have just saved my life. The stress intensified after Emily returned from her trip. It took all my energy to hide my disgust and the knowledge I had gained about her actions. I have somewhat gotten used to this thought, but it remains emotionally draining. She noticed that something was off but seemed to believe that I was unaware of her infidelity. Her lack of shame is staggering. Recently, she asked me to buy her the expensive gift I had promised for our 10-year anniversary, which I had delayed. Despite this, she planned another business trip just the day after our anniversary, an encounter described in excruciating detail in her diaries. To make matters worse, she was arranging to meet her latest partner on the day of my birthday. Over time, I have started to feel better, thanks to exercise and therapy. I had never been to a therapist before, and I regret not doing it sooner. Despite Emily betraying me in the worst possible way, part of me still thought that maybe all of this was my fault. I blamed myself, thinking, maybe if I had done this differently, if I had put more effort into that. My therapist helped me see that while I could have done some things differently, I cannot be held responsible for the choices she made. No one deserves to be betrayed in the way I was. If I am at fault for anything, it is for blaming myself for everything, always putting her needs ahead of my own, and trusting her unconditionally without question. While it was extremely hard for me to balance work and look after the kids alone every time she went on these trips, I always let her go, convincing myself that I was supporting her career and helping her relieve stress from being at home. I thought that if I had a better job or made her happier, she would not feel the need to escape. I would be lying if I said I am no longer depressed, but I am certainly doing much better these days. Now, I feel more anger than sadness, and it is this anger that is keeping me going. My therapist advised me to channel this rage into productive activities, which has worked surprisingly well. I consulted to law firms about my situation and was advised to collect more evidence, which I have been doing over the past few weeks. I finished digitizing all of her diaries from the past 2 years. I accessed her computer and found numerous photos, chat conversations, and documents that will help my case. She has been posting about her affairs in a private group on social media, from which I have taken plenty of screenshots. I compiled a list of all her sexual partners mentioned in the diaries and have been identifying them on social media. I gathered information on her current partners and managed to find out where they live and work. I am debating whether I should confront them. The things I have read in her diaries are so bizarre that I thought perhaps she was writing material for some twisted novel until I found corroborating evidence on her computer. Perhaps I am broken myself, but a part of me finds a grim satisfaction in gathering all these pieces of evidence, cross-referencing them with her diaries, and uncovering everything about her and her lovers. Part of me wants to expose her on social media by posting everything I have found, since a big part of her business is centered around her online presence. However, I am refraining from doing so because it would also affect me, our children, and her parents, who have been nothing but kind to me since we married. I am also unsure whether to reveal this to her parents, as it would likely devastate them. I am planning to confront her after further consultations with my lawyers to ensure I can gain custody of our kids. Unfortunately, the country I live in tends to grant custody to the mother. Even if she is unfit, I need to set the terms of the divorce and child support carefully. In any case, I want to thank everyone for their advice. A few weeks ago, I was in complete despair and had no idea how to approach the situation. Now, I feel that little by little, I am climbing out of the hole I was thrown into. I apologize if I do not respond to all comments. Right now, my full attention is devoted to protecting my children.
I never thought I would be sharing this story, but here I am, my fiancé, whom I will call Oliver, and I have been together for 12 years. We have stuck together through thick and thin, long-distance relationships, the usual problems of a couple starting off very young, and so on. In the last few years, he has been struggling a lot with depression and anxiety, but he is slowly getting better. At one point during our long-distance relationship, we were living in 2 separate countries. During his stay abroad, he became very good friends with 2 other people, Ben and Sarah. The 3 of them bonded through shared experiences and similar mental health issues. He returned, and we started living together. Eventually, we became engaged. We decided on a long engagement of over 2 years since we were both settled on long academic paths. Our relationship, which had been turbulent at times, settled very well as we both matured and got to really know each other during our daily lives. Things were going smoothly. 3 years ago, Sarah moved closer to where we lived, planning to stay for 2 years. We were all good friends, and everything seemed fine. Long story short, my fiancé cheated on me with her shortly before she left the country. It was not just a physical affair, it was an emotional one as well. I found out by snooping, which I know was wrong, but my suspicions were confirmed. I was devastated. I cut contact with her immediately and demanded that he do the same. I almost broke up with him. We were separated for 2 months. It was rough because, at that time, I had no access to therapy or counseling and was really far away from home. But my friends were amazing and supported me during that time. After those 2 and a lot of soul-searching, we took the first tentative steps to be together again. It took me a long time to forgive him and to recover my trust in him, but little by little, we healed and made it work again. This was 2 years ago, and things have been really good since then. Ben did not take the news of their separation too kindly. He has been passive-aggressive toward Oliver about not talking to Sarah. Oliver has reacted well and has been adamant about not contacting him again. 2 weeks ago, Ben told my fiancé that he had given our new address to Sarah because she wanted to send us a package with stuff belonging to Oliver. He says that she has nothing of his, and I believe it. They have never lived together, and most of their friendship they have been living in different places. He has been really anxious about all this. He does not want any contact with her. I personally do not care about her, but he is dreading the day the package arrives. If it comes when I am in the house, I will throw it away, but I do not want him to receive it and have an anxiety attack. So, I am seeking advice. I know I do not have to protect my fiancé from this stuff, but he is hurting, and I want to support him. I do not think it contains compromising material because I already found that already. I think it is a passive-aggressive way of reminding us of her existence. And what should we do about his friend Ben? I left out some details that might be relevant. I do not think the package contains proof or details I still do not know. When she was living in the same country as us, she was still 600 kilometers away, so there were not really any chances to meet without me knowing. I know when it happened. Later, she moved to another continent. At that time, I demanded that he 1. Give me access to all his accounts. He complied. And 2. Block her everywhere. He did that too. And I believe him because when she tried to contact us later about Ben, she had to do it through common friends. His anxious reaction does not surprise me. He used to have very serious issues with social anxiety, to the point of being paralyzed about any kind of unpleasant interaction. He has been working on his mental health, getting therapy and medication, and now is much better. He reacted maturely to the last developments. he told me immediately, and he understands that it is his mess to clean up, but he suffered. This might be pretty relevant too, but I kind of understated Ben's reaction. He did not take well at all to his two best friends not talking anymore. As I said, the three of them were a very close group, but he had a magical vision of the trio being friends forever. He was into Sarah a lot and spent hours talking to my fiancé about how much he loved her. I have the feeling that Ben is into my fiancé as well. When my fiancé told him that he and Sarah were no longer talking, and why, Ben seemed to accept it, but 2 weeks later, he contacted her to say he was about to self-harm. That is why she contacted us. We reached out to Ben's family, and he was okay. My fiancé set boundaries with him but did not cut him off completely. I am starting to think that Ben's reason for giving her our address is his particular way of punishing my fiancé for leaving the magical trio. My personal feelings, all this drama has been incredibly annoying. The general advice is to cut off Ben, and I think it is spot on. I told Oliver that I think it is the best idea. He was on the fence about it. Regarding the package, I personally lean towards throwing it away without opening it. I do not want to have anything to do with that person. However, it is not my decision to make. If and when it comes, I will offer him the choice either to throw it away or to go through the contents together, and probably toss them afterwards. After discussing it with him, we decided we did not want the package, so he wrote a message to Ben saying, "Tell Sarah we do not want anything from her," and then he blocked him. This all happened last year. Meanwhile, life went on. He changed jobs, he is still in academia, and now he is much happier and relaxed. My job is well paid and interesting, and I can keep some other projects on the side. We got married this summer, and our wedding was perfect for us, lively, bombastic, lots of food and alcohol, and our friends and family together. It was expensive, but we did not care. This month, my husband is on a conference trip on another continent, so I am home alone. When I arrived home in the evening, there was a package addressed to him in the mailbox, with a stamp from a place where I know she lived, and a sender we do not know. I thought for a moment, oh my, this may be her, but then I thought that it would be pretty crazy of her to send it now. That night, I was Skyping with my husband and made a comment about the parcel. I mentioned the name of the sender, and he did not recognize it, so I proposed that I open it with him on camera. And well, turns out I was right. It contained several postcards, wishing him happy birthdays and Merry Christmases, all unsigned. Also little notes such as dance in the rain, look at the clouds, walk barefoot, those kinds of platitudes. And it had a book, a young adult romance novel. I remember saying aloud, "Oh, for goodness sake," when I saw it. Meanwhile, my husband looked like he had seen a ghost. The title of the novel is Stargirl. It is about a girl who arrives at a high school, and she is very quirky and magical. She dances in the rain and plays the ukulele, and she is very misunderstood by the normies. The narrator dates her but realizes that he cannot be with her because, deep down, he is afraid of not fitting in, so he dumps her and then regrets it forever. It is not a terrible book. I liked the prose, but despite the intentions of the author, the heroine is too much of a special snowflake, and her behavior often delves into creepy territory. The book had a sad face drawn on the dedication page and a small note saying, "Read the sequel, you will understand." It was crammed with notes in small script, and sometimes the letters had been traced over several times. All of the notes were very idealized descriptions of the heroine, how magical and beautiful she was, about the things she did, etc. Some of the notes were also about the main character agonizing about staying with her or leaving her to fit in, or descriptions about how they made out. Yuck. There were also drawings of the heroine, who looked like an idealized version of Sarah. I am not going to lie, I laughed my head off at this manic pixie dream girl wannabe. My husband was less amused and more creeped out. He said that she was unstable and that he did not want that stuff in our home. I kind of forgot about the book for the following days because last week was my week from hell. I had to work 70 hours, I normally work 30, because, apart from my job, I had a 2-week project working in-house for a company, and I organized an art exhibition on the weekend. Also, I got pretty bad health news from a close friend, think incurable and degenerative, so the topic of Sarah was out of my mind. Yesterday, I finally had time to think about it, and I got angry at that woman. They have not met in 3 years. Who does she think she is? I considered unblocking her briefly to tell her to stay away from us, but discarded the idea. Then I considered finding out her address and sending her a copy of Holes by Louis Satcher and 20 minimalist memes printed between the pages, with a note saying, "This is a riddle. If you solve it, I will leave my wife for you. Love, Oliver." Then I realized I would rather ignore her, so I threw the notes in the recycling bin and put the book in a free box so somebody can take it home. That is all. No threats, no pictures, no dramatic confrontations. It was anticlimactic, but honestly, it was a welcome distraction in a heavy week. I do not like that she has our current address, but I do not think she will be sending more stuff. If she does, we will tell her to leave us alone. The funny thing is that I do not hate her. She is annoying, but this is just too sad to hate. To mock, okay, but not to hate. So, am I the bad for how I handled this situation?